Dr. Lisa Grant rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. The numbers still made no sense. She had been working at the Lunar Observatory Station for 3 years, and she had never seen readings like these before. The energy signatures were coming from the far side of the moon, but there was nothing there. At least, there should be nothing there. She pushed her chair back from the desk and walked to the window. Earth hung in the black sky like a blue marble, beautiful and peaceful. Lisa loved working on the moon. It was quiet here, away from all the noise and rush of life on Earth. But tonight, something felt wrong. Still looking at those weird numbers? Dr. Kevin Miller walked into the room with a cup of coffee in his hand. Kevin was her partner at the station, and he usually worked the night shift with her. He was a good scientist, but he did not like to take risks. He always wanted simple explanations for everything. "These readings are not normal, Kevin," Lisa said, pointing at her screen. "Look at this energy pattern. It is too organized to be natural." Kevin looked at the screen and shook his head. "The equipment is probably broken again. You know how sensitive these quantum sensors are. Remember last month when they detected a spaceship that turned out to be a piece of space junk?" Lisa frowned. "This is different. The pattern has been going on for 6 hours now, and it is getting stronger." Kevin sat down at his own computer and pulled up the same data. Maybe it is some kind of solar interference, or maybe one of those new satellites from Earth is causing problems. But Lisa was not convinced. She had studied space signals for most of her life, and this looked like nothing she had ever seen before. The energy was coming in waves like a heartbeat, and it was definitely artificial. She opened a new program on her computer and started working with the telescope controls. The main telescope at the station was powerful enough to see small objects on the far side of the moon. If something was really there, she would find it. "What are you doing?" Kevin asked. "I am going to take a look," Lisa said. "If there is something causing these signals, the telescope should be able to see it." It took her 20 minutes to line up the telescope with the right coordinates. The far side of the moon was always dark from Earth, but the station's position gave them a good view of areas that Earth-based telescopes could never see. When the first image appeared on her screen, Lisa thought there was a problem with the camera. The crater where the signals were coming from looked normal, just gray rock and dust like everywhere else on the moon. But when she enhanced the image and adjusted the settings, she saw something that made her heart race. There was a shadow in the crater that was too dark, too perfect. It was not the natural shadow of a rock or a hill. It was the shadow of something huge. "Kevin, come look at this," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Kevin walked over and looked at the screen. "I do not see anything unusual." Lisa pointed at the dark area. "Look at this shadow. It is too regular. And watch this." She switched to thermal imaging, and suddenly the shadow became a shape. It was long and smooth like a giant metal tube lying in the crater. Kevin stepped back from the screen. That cannot be right. Run the scan again." Lisa ran the scan 3 more times. Each time the shape was there. It was approximately 2 kilometers long and maybe half a kilometer wide. It was definitely not a natural formation. "We need to call Houston," Lisa said. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yes. We need to call Houston right now." Lisa opened the communication channel to Earth. It would take a few seconds for the signal to reach Mission Control in Houston. Commander Jake Peterson was on duty tonight, and Lisa had worked with him many times before. He was a smart man who did not panic easily. "Houston, this is Lunar Observatory. We have a priority communication for Commander Peterson." "This is Houston. Go ahead, Lunar Observatory." Lisa took a deep breath. "Commander, we have detected an unknown object on the far side of the moon. It appears to be artificial and very large." There was a long pause. "Say again, Lunar Observatory." "We have found what appears to be a spacecraft in Shackleton Crater. It is approximately 2 kilometers in length." Another pause. "Are you certain of this reading?" "We have confirmed it with multiple scans. We are sending you the images now." Lisa uploaded the telescope data to Houston. She could imagine the shock on Commander Peterson's face as he looked at the pictures. Finding an alien spacecraft was Something that scientists had dreamed about for decades, but no one really expected it to happen. Lunar Observatory, we have received your data. Stand by. For the next hour, Lisa and Kevin waited. They continued to scan the object, trying to learn more about it. The spacecraft seemed to be completely inactive. There were no energy emissions, no heat signatures, no radio signals. It was just sitting there like a piece of dead metal, but Lisa knew it was not dead. The quantum sensors were still detecting those strange energy patterns. Whatever was inside that ship, it was doing something. Finally, Commander Peterson came back on the radio. Lunar Observatory, we have analyzed your data. We are declaring this a Level 1 contact event. You are ordered to continue monitoring and report any changes immediately. Do not attempt to approach the object or send any signals toward it. Understood, Houston, Lisa replied. After the communication ended, Kevin sat down heavily in his chair. I cannot believe this is really happening, he said. Lisa nodded. She felt the same way. For her entire life, she had wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now she knew they were not. But instead of feeling excited, she felt worried. Why was the alien ship hiding? Why had it not made contact with Earth? She looked at the image on her screen again. The ship was beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves that looked almost organic. But there was something threatening about it, too. It was so much larger than anything humans had ever built. Over the next few hours, Lisa and Kevin took turns monitoring the object. They measured it from every angle and tried different types of scans. Slowly, they began to understand how advanced it was. The hull seemed to absorb most types of radiation, which explained why it had been invisible to Earth's satellites. Only Lisa's experimental quantum sensors had been sensitive enough to detect it. As the Earth day ended and the next shift prepared to take over, Lisa made one more discovery that chilled her to the bone. Her deep space monitoring equipment was picking up new signals from the outer solar system. The signals had the same energy pattern as the ship in the crater. The ship on the moon was not alone. Something else was coming toward Earth, and it was much bigger than a single spacecraft. Lisa saved all her data and prepared to brief the next shift. She had a feeling that this was just the beginning of something that would change humanity forever, but she had no idea how right she was or how much danger Earth was really in. 3 days had passed since Lisa Grant first spotted the alien ship on the moon. During those 3 days, the world had changed completely. The news was not public yet, but every major government knew about the spacecraft. Military bases around. The world were on high alert, and scientists were working around the clock to understand what they were dealing with. Dr. Rachel Murphy stood in the emergency command center that had been set up in Houston. She was one of the world's best experts on space physics, and right now, everyone wanted her opinion. The room was full of screens showing data from satellites, telescopes, and monitoring stations around the Earth and Moon. The gravitational readings are getting worse, said Chief Engineer Danny Foster. He had been moved from the International Space Station to help with the crisis. 3 of our communication satellites have already drifted out of position. Something is pulling on them. Rachel looked at the data on her screen. The numbers were frightening. It is not just pulling on the satellites, she said. It is creating some kind of field around the Earth-Moon system. Look at these measurements. Commander Jake Peterson joined them at the main display. He had not slept much in the past 3 days, and it showed on his face. What does this mean, Dr. Murphy? Rachel pointed to the gravity measurements. The alien ship is not just sitting there doing nothing. It is actively changing the space around the moon. These field lines extend all the way to Earth's atmosphere. Like a net? Peterson asked. More like a straw, Rachel said quietly. I think they are preparing to suck something out of our atmosphere. The room went silent. Everyone understood what that could mean. Without the right atmosphere, all life on Earth would die. Dr. Paul Jenkins looked up from his computer in the corner. He was a language expert who had been brought in to try to understand any alien communications. I have been monitoring all radio frequencies around the moon, he said. There is definitely some kind of signal pattern, but it is not like any language I have ever studied. Can you understand any of it? Peterson asked. Paul shook his head. Not yet. But I am starting to see some repeated patterns. It might take weeks to make real progress. Rachel was still studying the gravity data when something new appeared on her screen. Wait, she said. Look at this. The field strength just doubled. On the screens around the room, they could see real-time images from the moon. The alien spacecraft was glowing slightly, and there were new energy readings coming from inside Shackleton Crater. We need to get closer, Peterson said. We need to see what they are really doing. Within hours, a plan was made. Captain Steve Blake would lead a small team to the moon on the fastest spacecraft available. His mission was simple: get close. Enough to see what the aliens were building, but do not let them know humans were watching. Captain Blake was an experienced pilot who had flown many missions to the moon before. His team included Lieutenant Emma Watson, who was one of the best pilots in the space program, and Sergeant Tony Garcia, who was an expert on electronic systems and spy equipment. Their spacecraft, Ranger 7, was loaded with the most advanced cameras and sensors that NASA could provide. The trip to the moon would take 3 days, and every hour mattered. While Blake's team traveled toward the moon, the situation on Earth was getting worse. The gravity fields were affecting more satellites every day. Weather patterns were beginning to change as the upper atmosphere was slowly being disturbed. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had been studying the few images they had of the alien ship. She was an expert on biology, and she had some disturbing ideas about what the aliens might be. Look at the shape of their ship, she told the team in Houston. It is not like our spaceships at all. It looks more like a living thing. I think these aliens might be very different from us. Different how? Peterson asked. Their technology might be biological instead of mechanical, Amy explained. That would explain why the ship seems to absorb energy instead of reflecting it. And if they think in biological terms, they might see Earth as a resource to be harvested, not a planet with intelligent life. Rachel Murphy was working on her own theory. If they are trying to harvest our atmosphere, they might need to change it first. Our air might not be right for them in its natural state. What do you mean? Peterson asked. Think about it, Rachel said. Humans have been burning fossil fuels and changing the atmosphere for over a century. Maybe we have accidentally made the air more useful to them. The idea was terrifying. It meant that human industrial activity might have been preparing Earth for an alien invasion without anyone knowing it. Captain Blake's team reached the moon on schedule. They approached Shackleton Crater very carefully, using the smallest possible engine burns to avoid detection. When they finally got close enough to see the alien ship clearly, what they found was much worse than anyone had expected. Houston, this is Ranger 7. Blake's voice came over the radio. You are not going to believe what we are seeing here. The alien ship was not just sitting in the crater. It had grown. Tunnels and passages extended deep into the moon's surface, glowing with a strange blue light. The ship itself looked more like the head of some giant creature that had burrowed into the moon. There are structures everywhere, Lieutenant Watson reported. The entire crater has been turned into some kind of facility, and there is movement down there. Sergeant Garcia was monitoring the electronic signals. I am picking up massive energy flows, he said. Whatever they are building, it is almost ready. Through their cameras, they could see that the aliens had been very busy. The tunnels went down for kilometers, and there were large chambers carved out of the solid rock. In some of the chambers, they could see strange machines working automatically. It looks like they are processing the rock, Blake reported. Breaking it down into basic materials, but for what? The answer came when Garcia's instruments detected something new. Captain, I am reading a huge power surge. Something big is starting. Suddenly, the alien facility began to glow brighter. Energy flowed through the tunnels like blood through veins. And then something incredible happened. A beam of invisible force shot out from the facility toward Earth. The gravity sensors on Ranger 7 went crazy, and back on Earth, the atmospheric monitoring stations began reporting rapid changes. They are doing it, Rachel Murphy said in Houston, watching the data stream in. They are actually pulling gases out of our atmosphere. Dr. Jenkins suddenly looked up from his translation work. I figured out part of their language, he said. The word they use most often translates to something like atmospheric processors. What does that mean? Peterson asked. Paul's face was pale. I do not think they see us as intelligent life, Commander. I think they see us as machines that have been processing their atmosphere for them. They think we are just tools. Back on the moon, Captain Blake was watching the alien facility work. The implications were clear. The aliens were not planning to invade Earth in the traditional sense. They were planning to slowly drain away the atmosphere until all human life died out. Then they would have a planet with exactly the air they wanted. Houston, we need to get out of here, Blake said. But first you need to know something else. This is not the only facility. I can see construction starting in 3 other craters. They are building a network. The communication ended as Ranger 7 began its journey back to Earth. In Houston, the emergency team sat in shocked silence. They now understood the alien plan, and it was worse than anyone had imagined. The aliens were not invaders. They were farmers, and Earth was their crop. The oxygen levels on Earth were dropping fast. In just 1 week since the aliens had started their atmospheric harvesting, the air was already becoming thinner. People in high mountain areas were the first to notice problems breathing. Hospitals around the world reported more cases of breathing difficulties every day. President Collins sat in the underground war room beneath the White House. Around the table were the best military leaders and scientists that America could gather. Similar meetings were happening in every major country on Earth. For the first time in human history, all nations were working together against a common enemy. How long do we have? The president asked. Dr. Rachel Murphy looked at her calculations. Again. 6 weeks, maybe 7. After that, the atmosphere will be too thin to support human life. Everyone on Earth will die. General William Scott, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, slammed his hand on the table. Our missiles cannot even reach the moon. And even if they could, our intelligence says the alien ship has some kind of energy shield. Captain Roy Bennett stood up from his chair. He was in charge of the USS Defender, the newest and most advanced military spacecraft that America had built. Sir, we have tested our weapons against the alien ship's hull material. The samples that Captain Blake brought back from the moon show that conventional weapons are useless. The hull repairs itself faster than we can damage it. Dr. Linda Hayes had been quiet during most of the meeting. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone in the room knew how dangerous her mind could be. She had spent 30 years designing weapons that were too terrible to use. Now humanity might need those terrible weapons after all. There is another option, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. What kind of option? President, Collins asked. Linda stood up and walked to the large screen at the front of the room. She pulled up a detailed map of the moon. We cannot destroy the alien ship directly, but we might be able to destroy the moon around it. The room was silent. General Scott was the first to speak. You want to blow up the moon? Not the whole moon, Linda explained. But we could cause enough damage to collapse their underground facility. If we place nuclear bombs in exactly the right spots, we can create an earthquake on the moon big enough to crush their operation. Dr. Matt Reeves, a geology expert, looked at the plan on the screen. The moon is not like Earth, he said. It does not have plate tectonics or natural earthquakes, but if we could create artificial fractures in exactly the right pattern, it might work, Rachel Murphy added. The alien facility is built deep underground. If the rock above it collapses, even their advanced technology might not be able to save them. President Collins looked around the table. What would this do to Earth? The moon controls our tides and weather patterns. There would be changes, Matt Reeves admitted. The tides might be different, and the seasons might shift, slightly, but humans would still be alive to deal with those problems. Commander Alice Turner had been studying the tactical requirements. She was a former astronaut who now worked in military planning. This would be the most dangerous mission in human history, she said. We would need to land teams on the moon while the aliens are actively defending their territory, and the timing would have to be perfect. How many bombs would we need? General Scott asked. Linda Hayes pulled up another screen showing her calculations. 12 nuclear devices, placed in a specific pattern around the crater. Each bomb would need to be buried at least 500 meters underground to create the right seismic effect. 12 separate landing missions, Alice Turner said. Each team would have to drill through moon rock under enemy fire, place a nuclear bomb, and escape before detonation. Captain Bennett looked at the plan carefully. The USS Defender could carry maybe 4 teams at once. We would need at least 3 separate missions to get everyone in position. We do not have time for 3 missions, Rachel Murphy said. The atmospheric loss is accelerating. In 2 weeks, the air will be too thin for the mission teams to work effectively, even in spacesuits. Dr. Hayes nodded. It has to be one mission, all 12 teams all at once. President Collins stood up. How many people would we need? 48. Specialists, Alice Turner replied. 4 people per team. 1 pilot, 1 explosives expert, 1 geologist, and 1 communications officer. And how many of them would survive? The president asked quietly. Alice Turner and Captain Bennett looked at each other. Neither wanted to answer that question. Mr. President, Captain Bennett finally said, this mission has never been attempted before. We would be landing on an active alien military base, with no backup and no way to retreat if something goes wrong. Honestly, we should expect heavy casualties. How heavy? Bennett was quiet for a long moment. Maybe half of them will come home. The room fell silent again. President Collins walked to the window, even though it only showed the concrete wall of the underground bunker. 24 people will die so that 7 billion can live. It is the only plan we have, sir, General Scott said. Over the next 3 days, the mission teams were assembled. Captain Sam Wright was chosen to lead Alpha Team, which would handle the northern section of the crater. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Morris would command Beta Team in the south. Each team leader was an experienced soldier who had volunteered for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. The explosives experts included Technical Sergeant Rick Lopez, who had worked with nuclear weapons for 15 years. The geologists were led by Dr. Craig Adams, who had studied lunar rock samples for most of his career. The communications specialists would maintain contact with Earth and coordinate the simultaneous detonation. While the teams trained for their mission, the situation on Earth continued to get worse. The alien atmospheric harvesting was running 24 hours a day now. Weather patterns were becoming chaotic as the upper atmosphere thinned out. Some coastal cities were experiencing strange tides as the gravitational effects from the moon changed. Dr. Paul Jenkins finally made a breakthrough in translating the alien communications. What he discovered made everything even more urgent. They are talking about expansion, he reported to the command center. The facility on the moon is just the beginning. Once they finish harvesting our atmosphere, they plan to build similar facilities on Mars and Venus. They are terraforming the entire solar system, Rachel Murphy realized. Earth is just their first target. Captain Blake, who had just returned from his second reconnaissance mission to the moon, brought even worse news. The alien ship is preparing to leave, he reported. Our thermal imaging shows they are warming up some kind of propulsion system. Where are they going? President Collins asked. Unknown, sir, but if I had to guess, I would say they are planning to return to their main fleet and guide them to Earth. Dr. Hayes looked at her mission timeline. If the alien ship leaves before we attack, they will know that humans are capable of fighting back. They will warn their fleet, and next time they will be ready for us. President Collins made the hardest decision of his presidency. Launch the mission, launch it tomorrow. Captain Bennett saluted. Yes, sir, we will be ready. That night, 48 men and women prepared for a mission that would either save humanity or die trying. They wrote letters to their families, said their prayers, and checked their equipment one last time. The fate of 7 billion people now rested on 12 nuclear bombs and the courage of 48 volunteers who were willing to fight aliens on the moon itself. The USS Defender lifted off from Earth carrying 48 of humanity's bravest volunteers. Captain Roy Bennett watched the blue planet grow smaller behind them as they headed toward what might be the most important battle in human history. In the cargo bay, 12 nuclear bombs waited to be planted deep in the moon's surface. The journey to the moon took 18 hours. During that time, the teams went over their plans again and again. Each person knew exactly what they had to do and where they had to go. There would be no second chances. Captain Sam Wright checked his equipment one more time. His Alpha team would land at the northern edge of Shackleton Crater and work their way toward the alien facility. The plan was simple: land fast, drill deep, plant the bomb, and get out before the aliens could stop them. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Morris was preparing her beta team for the southern approach. She had studied the thermal images of the alien facility and knew they would face the heaviest resistance. The aliens had built defensive structures in the south, with energy weapons that could destroy a spacecraft in seconds. Dr. Craig Adams carried the geological scanner that would help them find the exact drilling points. The nuclear bombs had to be placed in very specific locations to create the earthquake pattern they needed. Even a few meters in the wrong direction could ruin the entire plan. As they approached the moon, the alien ship became visible through the spacecraft's windows. It was even larger than the photographs had shown, and it was definitely preparing to leave. Bright energy flowed along its hull, and the massive engines at the back were starting to glow. "They know we are coming," Captain Bennett announced over the intercom. "All teams prepare for immediate deployment." The USS Defender split into 12 smaller landing craft, each carrying one 4-person team. The plan was to land simultaneously at 12 different points around the crater, making it impossible for the aliens to stop all of them at once. Captain Wright's Alpha team landed first, touching down on a flat area about 2 kilometers from the alien facility. The moment their craft settled on the lunar surface, they could see alien defensive systems activating. Towers of crystal and metal rose from the crater walls, and energy beams began sweeping across the landscape. "Alpha team is down and moving," Wright reported to the command ship. His team grabbed their drilling equipment and started running toward their target location. The low gravity on the moon made it possible to move quickly, but it also made it hard to change direction if they needed to dodge enemy fire. Dr. Adams used his scanner to find the exact drilling point, while the other team members set up their equipment. The portable drill was a new design that used focused energy beams to cut through rock. It could reach 500 meters in about 20 minutes, but 20 minutes was a long time when aliens were shooting at you. Lieutenant Morris's beta team had a harder landing. As their craft approached the southern crater wall, 3 alien energy beams hit them at once. The spacecraft's shields held, but barely. Pilot Sarah Kim had to make an emergency landing on rough terrain, and Technical Sergeant Rick Lopez was thrown against the wall during the crash. "Beta team is down but operational," Morris reported, though she could see that Rick was hurt. "Moving to target location." Rick Lopez stood up and tested his injured arm. It was probably broken, but he could still work. "I am fine, Colonel," he said. "Let us go plant this bomb." The beta team began their approach to the drilling site, but the alien defenses were much stronger in the south. Energy beams cut through the air around them, and strange flying machines emerged from tunnels in the crater wall. "We have company," Morris shouted as the alien flyers began attacking. The small machines looked like metal insects, but they fired powerful weapons that could cut through rock. Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Carter monitored the mission from the command center in Houston. She could see the positions of all 12 teams on her screens, and she could see that several teams were in serious trouble. "Team 7 is pinned down by enemy fire," she reported to President Collins, who was watching from the White House. "Team 11 has reached their drilling point, but their equipment is damaged." President Collins gripped the arms of his chair. "How many teams do we need to succeed?" Dr. Linda Hayes looked at her calculations. "At least 8 bombs in the right pattern. If we lose more than 4 teams, the earthquake will not be strong enough." On the moon, Captain Wright's team had started drilling. The energy beam cut through the lunar rock like a hot knife through butter, sending up clouds of dust and debris. Dr. Adams watched his scanner carefully, making sure they were going straight down toward the weak point in the moon's structure. 400 meters, Adams announced. 100 meters to go. But the alien defenses had found them. 3 of the crystal towers turned toward Alpha Team's position, and energy beams began hitting the ground around them. The drill operator, Sergeant Mike Davis, kept working even as explosions of vaporized rock erupted nearby. "Almost there," Davis shouted over the noise. 50 meters left. At the beta team position, Rick Lopez was setting up the nuclear bomb while Colonel Morris and the others fought off the alien flyers. Rick's broken arm made the work difficult, but he had trained for this mission for weeks. He knew the bomb's systems better than anyone. "Bomb is armed and ready," Rick announced. "We just need the drill to reach depth." But their drill had been damaged in the landing, and it was moving slowly. The alien flyers were getting closer, and their weapons were getting more accurate. "Colonel, we are not going to make it," said Private Bob Johnson, their communications officer. "The drill will take another 10 minutes, and those flyers will be on us in 2. Rick Lopez looked at the partially drilled hole, then at the nuclear bomb in his hands. He made a decision that surprised everyone. "Get back to the ship," he ordered his teammates. "I'm going to put the bomb as deep as I can and detonate it manually." "That is suicide," Morris protested. "It is the mission," Rick replied. He grabbed the bomb and started running toward the hole. "Tell my wife I kept my promise." Rick Lopez jumped into the hole with the nuclear bomb. It was not as deep as they had planned, but it would have to be enough. He armed the device with a 30-second timer and radioed his final message to Earth. "This is Beta Team. Package delivered. Get clear." The explosion that followed lit up the entire near side of the moon. It was the first of 12 nuclear bombs that detonated within a span of 3 minutes as team after team completed their missions. Captain Jim Parker, watching from the observation ship horizon, saw the most incredible sight in human history. The surface of the moon cracked like broken glass, with fractures spreading out from each bomb site. The alien facility, built deep underground, collapsed as millions of tons of rock fell into the tunnels and chambers. The alien ship, caught in the middle of takeoff, was pulled back down by the collapsing crater. Its hull, designed to repair small damage, could not handle being crushed under an entire mountain. The ship's power core exploded in a flash of light that was visible from Earth. Dr. Helen Carter watched the seismic readings in amazement. "The earthquake is propagating exactly as predicted," she announced. "The entire facility is collapsing." On Earth, atmospheric monitoring stations detected an immediate change. The alien harvesting beams shut down as their source of power was destroyed. The slow theft of Earth's atmosphere stopped completely. President Collins addressed the world later that day. "Humanity has faced extinction and survived," he said. "We did not win because we were stronger or smarter than our enemies. We won because we were willing to sacrifice everything to protect our home." 22 of the 48 mission members did not return to Earth. Their names were carved into a memorial built where the alien ship had crashed. The crater became known as Hero's Grave, and it served as a reminder that humanity would fight for its survival no matter what the cost. The approaching alien fleet, detecting the destruction of their advance base, changed course and left the solar system. They had learned that humans were not just atmospheric processors. They were warriors who would destroy their own moon to defend their planet. Earth was safe, but the moon would never be the same. The massive crater and the changed tidal patterns reminded everyone that freedom sometimes required terrible sacrifices. And somewhere in the darkness of space, other alien species heard the story of the humans who broke their own moon to save their world.